Okay. Okay, Al Hurt. Hey, everybody. You caught me. Oh, I hadn't moved around a lot today, people, and I needed my blood to get going. So I was listening. To some Al Hurt. Did not hurt at all. Did not hurt at all. Waka waka. Oh, hey. So, retro road mappers. Oh, I look like I've been dancing around the living room because I have been. Wait, how does my hair go again? Oh, we didn't even know what day it was today. I was yelling to Retro Road husband. I was like, hey. So hey, quick, what day is it? What day? And he's like, yeah, the 20. And I was like, exactly. So welcome everybody, Retro Road Mappers. So nice to see the friendly names and faces. Hello, Mary Beth, Glen Wells. Nice to see you. Craig Nye, awesome to see everybody. And I just lost something because I'm still figuring this out. So anyhow, welcome to the Xth episode of Retro Roadmap. Yes, Al Hurt. Kind of reminds me of, what's his name? Benny Hill, a little bit. You know, that's Yakety Sax, though. And don't ask, I know this stuff. Oh, Steve, thank you for chiming in from Weymouth. Let me see, Weymouth, my dad. My dad was in the Navy. He used to, we used to drive him down to Weymouth when I was a little kid. But anyhow, we are going to be talking today. Dawn, nice to see you. Happy Thursday to you as well. I am trying to make the most of this Thursday. It's a bit gloomsville outside, but it's not raining, so I'm not complaining. And I am really excited to be here to share with you some of my finds, because we are doing, as I mentioned, I've decided I'm doing a Facebook Live, Retro Roadmap Facebook Live every Tuesday and Thursday for however long we're going to be in quarantine and maybe then some, so I can share with you my faves and finds from each state. So each episode is a state. Today's state is, this says Ocean City, but if you look closer, because there are a couple of Ocean Cities, this is Maryland. So we will talk about Maryland today. Michael G., thank you for telling me you are here in the taking of attendance. I appreciate that. Don Owen, nice to see you as well. Happy Thursday, everybody. I don't know about you, but I am kind of amazed at how quickly the weeks go by. Thursday is the day that Retro Road Husband goes to the grocery store. He used to go all the time before all this, and now I'm so proud of him because he has been able to just go to the grocery store one day a week, and we have not expired from lack of foodstuffs. So it's a totally different world, and I realize, for just a smidge of seriousness, I realize that there's all sorts of crazy, sad, awful things going on. Jeff Cooper, nice to see you from the UK. I would say good day, mate, but that's Australia. And bonjour is France. I don't know. Hello, that's what we say. But anyhow, I know there's some really dark stuff going on in the universe and in our country and in our world, but let's use this time together to kind of just put that on the back burner. There's a lot of it we have no control over. We can't do anything. So today we're going to talk about those wonderful, cool vintage places that we love that I want to send you to. The understanding is we're all moving forward with the hope and the good vibes that all these cool places in Maryland and beyond are going to be open when we are all able to safely leave our houses. Okay, don't be unsafe. Okay, we all want to live, so let's do the smart things so we can live. Okay. Oh, there we go. Alrighty from Blighty, eh? Now that reminds me of the Smiths, and I won't start singing the Smiths. I swear, if we have a late night Maud Betty Facebook Live and there's some music and there's some drinking, there'll be some really bad singing going on. But in any case, today we're talking about Maryland. So we've done all the states. We're working down from Maine down the coast. Haven't decided where we're going to go on Tuesday, but I'll let you guys know that sometime this weekend. So today we're going to talk about Maryland. Maryland. I have so many places. Oh, I love the Smiths. I have so many places in Maryland that I want to share with you, that I want to kind of hit the ground running. But before I do that, I also want to give a shout out to some of the people who have helped me find some of these places. Pardon me, I feel like it's all weird and stuff. Sorry. Anyhow, I want to give a shout out to some of the people from Maryland who have contributed to Retro Roadmap, because while a lot of it is me, and I say that as a fact, not as a brag, it's also not just all me, because I can't do it without everybody else. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now unless you were there on the other side, you know, listening to these things. And also, maybe, you know, just as important is there are other people out in the world who love these old places like you and I do. And what they do is they get inspired and excited, and they get on the road and they drive their lives to these cool places, or they live by them and say, hey, I have this really cool place in my neighborhood. Have you heard it? Or, you know what? You inspired me to go on a road trip, and then we found these places that I don't think you have on Retro Roadmap. So it is a collaborative effort here. I definitely always desire to give credit where credit is due, because it's not just me and my big head figuring all this out. It's collaborative. So I want to give some shout outs during today's show, and if I forget anybody, I truly apologize. So let's talk about Maryland. Somebody had asked about Ocean City. So let's see. So let's set the stage, okay? So Maryland is a state on the East Coast, and we were talking about Delaware yesterday, and we were talking about the fact that you go way down the edge of it, and then there's an invisible line, you know, a state line, and then you can basically go right from Delaware into Maryland. And when you do that, you are in Ocean City. So Ocean City has a wonderful boardwalk. A lot of it has been revived, but there are still a few vintage gems that I love. And I just realized, first of all, I'm scratching my head, which is kind of gooey. But I want to tell you about a few places that I love from the Ocean City, Maryland boardwalk. One of them is, and this is an Ocean City place. They have a few locations both on the boardwalk and on the main drag. Dumpsters Dairyland. Dumpsters is great, and not dumpsters like some people have called it, but Dumpsters. It has started in 1939. It is primarily a place to go get ice creams and sundaes, though a few of the locations are restaurants, so you can go there and get burgers, like a sit-down meal, and then get an ice cream sundae for dessert. Very cool old school places. I remember going there on a road trip in like 95 or 96 with my sisters, and it's still there. Wonderful, wonderful place to go. And some of their locations are open year round, though obviously nothing's open right now because of the COVID, but Dumpsters is great. Another thing that ends with the ERs is Trimpers. So Trimpers is one of the places on the boardwalk at the very beginning of the boardwalk, kind of down towards the most southern point of the boardwalk, is my favorite area of the boardwalk because there's a few gems there. So there's Trimpers. So Trimpers has a bunch of rides, a bunch of old school rides. They've got some arcade games. And the one thing I love the most about Trimpers is that they have a wonderful vintage carousel. Now, that trip that I mentioned about my sisters that we went to, you know, decades ago, one of the reasons we went to Ocean City, Maryland was because I had a vintage postcard that had an old antique carousel on it, and I wanted to go see if it was around. It was, and it still is. It's at Trimpers. And according to their website, it is a circa 1912 Herschel Spellman carousel. So Herschel Spellman, they're the people who made the carousel. And it's got a menagerie, not just horses. So they've got horses, they've got a zebra, a dragon, a rooster, and some other animals. And they also have 3 chariots. So if in the grand scheme of life, the horses or the animals on the merry-go-round is too crazy of a ride for you, you can sit in the cherry seat. But, you know, be bold and adventurous and sit on one of the moving animals. Another place on the boardwalk that's right down there. Now, this is kind of one of those hidden gem things that's so hidden, it's even hard to find information online about it. We went there a number of years ago. You'll see some pictures on retroroadmap.com when you go to the search by states and you look up Maryland. And it's one of those places, it's called, we basically just call it the bar. But it is the bar, but it also has a food area next to it. and it is kind of an old school, some people would call it a dive bar, and we have really gone there for, I apologize everybody, I keep on getting texts and I don't want to disturb, but if it looks like I'm flicking something away, I'm flicking away the texts. But the bar has a neat little counter space on the other side where you can get some food, and that's a really cool old school area of the boardwalk there. One of the things I'm going to try to do too right now, I can't flip my phone, but I just realized, oh, you can see it behind me. So see right here, this thing, this right here is a sign, and you get a little close up of a little bit of sneak into the house, but this is a sign from Trimper's Rides right here. That's a photograph. It's a photograph I took that I loved so much that's right at Trimper's. So if you see that sign, you'll know you're in the right place according to Maud Betty. So that's Ocean City, Maryland places, but we have so many other places to go to in Maryland. Right outside of Ocean City is a place called Frontier Town Western Theme Park. This is one of those old school Western places, but you can also camp there. We have not been there. We have not camped there. We've driven by sometimes, but I haven't gone to some of these places. So while I am recommending these places as exciting places to try out, this is when your sense of adventure comes into play too, because while I haven't been there and all signs point to, ooh, it looks like a cool place to go, I haven't been there, so I can't give you like my personal recommendation, but it's totally a place that I would check out. So if you're gonna go on the road in Maryland, check out some of these places and let me know how they are. Speaking of places that you like in Maryland, the neat thing about me doing these videos is that while they're live now, and the live people, I love you the most because you have showed up like I am showing up. So I appreciate you meeting me. But so if you have favorite places in Maryland, put them in the comments here, because then I can know about them. The folks that are here with you in this little community right now will know about them. But then also there are people who maybe would love to tune in, but we're a little bit early for the West Coast, and there are some people who are still working, you know, on their regular work hours that can't tune in. But if you put your favorites in the comments, they can also find out about them. So as I said, collaborative effort here. So that's it. Oh, so as you all know too, one of the things I love to talk about and love to discover on the road when I'm retro road mapping is like indigenous cuisines, right? So foods that you don't really find anywhere else, or if you do, it's like a thing there. Again, this harkens back to another road trip I took south. I think this was just with my sister Pam, and we bought they were called crab flavored, where's my hands? Crab flavored potato chips, or I guess crab, I could be a crab. Crab flavored potato chips. Well, we're from New England, so we're like, oh, crab flavored. This should taste kind of like the ocean or something. So we get them, we open up the bag of Utz's, and they are orange, and they taste really spicy. Here's the deal. We didn't know that in Maryland, the spice, the crab spice, is really very Old Bay. Like Old Bay, it's a spice in a can that has all sorts of spices in it, and they put it in the crab boils and in crab soup and everything. So it's not really the flavor of the crab, but it is kind of an indigenous flavor to Maryland. The reason I bring up the foods is because while we are on this kind of coastal area of Maryland, I want to make sure I tell you about a really neat place called Smith Island. Now, I've never been there, but I learned about it because when we were in a diner in Exmoor, Virginia, a couple of years ago, they had Smith Island cake as a dessert. And Smith Island cake, if you Google it, you'll see it's a really neat looking cake, and it's a thin layer of cake with a thin layer of fudge, and it's like 8 to 15 layers of this cake. And the story goes, they were sent out with the fishermen from Smith Island, and they made them that way so they would stay longer. And even the fudge icing, they do use the fudge icing instead of regular icing because it held up well in the heat and things. So there is a place called Smith Island in Maryland that this cake is from. You can get the cake elsewhere, but you can also go to Smith Island, but the only way you can get to Smith Island is by boat because it is an island. Unlike Rhode Island, not really an island, Smith Island is an island, and they're famous for Smith Island cake. So anytime you see Smith Island cake on a menu in Maryland, check it out, because it's something you can't get anywhere else in the States. Another thing I want to talk about, well, I'll talk about this in a minute. So that's kind of the south, kind of heading down towards, like, if we were in Smith Island, we're very close to Virginia. So we're going to talk about Virginia in a future episode. But now what we're going to do is let's pretend we were going to, let's pretend, hear what I did just there, Hillis? Let's pretend that we are going to Maryland, but instead of from the ocean, we're going from Delaware, and we are on 95, because this is how many people get through Maryland is going through 95 from the northern states to go to the south. So the place I have to totally recommend you go as soon as within moments of you crossing the state line from Delaware to Maryland is Havre de Grace. Havre de Grace, I was going to say one word for you. I think it's two, maybe it's hyphenated. Joe Retro, J-O, Retro, R-E-T-R-O. It is one of my absolute favorite vintage stores that I've ever come across. And the reason I love it so much is because not only does Joe Retro carry so many of the fun things that I love to collect. She's got records. She's got Pyrex wear. My sister loves the Pyrex. I've got some, and more Pyrex than you've ever seen. She's got, jewelry made from Pyrex. There's some vintage furniture. There's some great, like state souvenirs. You know how I like those, like the glasses and things, just all sorts of things. But she collects only the best stuff, and she decorates this place like you wouldn't believe. It is such, if anybody, you guys know me, I love to decorate and put stuff together. And there's so many great places in Havre de Grace that once you get to Joe Retro, you definitely need to spend the day, because it's a cute place to walk around and get food and shop. But Joe Retro is the place to go. She's actually has things twice a year called Pyrex Fest. And I went to the last one, and it was so much fun. They're not having it in reality this year, but it's online. But really check out Joe Retro and all the other shops in Havre de Grace. As a quick aside, if you're into like duck decoys and things like my dad was, there's also a duck decoy place to go. And yes, thank you, Shoshana, for reminding us that Havre de Grace is awesome. And yes, Joe Retro has been doing an excellent job of putting stuff online, Facebook page. Check her out, that you can still buy stuff even if you can't go to the store. But once we are all safely able to go out of our houses and to go to other places where other people are, definitely go to Joe Retro. So here we are, we're in Maryland, and we're heading down 95, and there is a place that I want to recommend. Actually, it's a food thing I want to recommend, because here's another thing. You're going to see a bunch, especially when you're driving down 95, and I don't quite have a favorite of that area yet, so if you do, pop it in the comments. Pit beef. So pit beef is like an unusual kind of Maryland, really Baltimore area bit of barbecue. It's not brisket, but it's kind of like brisket. It is a, I think it's top round that they do, and they cook this usually over a fire, slice it really thin, and put it on a bun, sometimes with horseradish sauce, things like that. First time I ever heard about it was in the John Waters movie. John Waters, as you know, the filmmaker John Waters, is from Maryland and Baltimore. So, of course, you're going to find all sorts of little Baltimoreisms in his things. And he has a wonderful movie called Pecker that's made in Hamden. I'll talk about Hamden in a little bit. But in Pecker is the first time I heard about pit beef. So if you ever see Smith Island cake and pit beef, you know you're in Maryland. So continuing going down south, Benji's Drive-In. Benji's Drive-In movie theater, not open now, but is a wonderful place, wonderful marquee, and one of, if not the biggest movie theater screen in the USA, they say. So Benji's. It's a great little throwback place, and it is in Middle River, Maryland, just kind of north of Baltimore, but not too far outside of that. And now we're going to get into Baltimore proper. Now, I could happily spend the entire day telling you about many places in Baltimore. And I have my friend Julie Kickline to thank for this because she helped me to a few of them in her neighborhood. So I want to help you to them too. Or maybe I hip you to them. Am I a jazz cat? I'm not sure. But the first place I want to mention that is in Baltimore that I would recommend is the G&A restaurant. Now, it's in just kind of a regular old neighborhood, busy streets, lots of things going on, but the G&A has been there since the 20s, if not earlier. I thought I wrote down the year, but I forgot. Oh, excellent. I think Don Owens is saying that you will love the place, so that's a good sign. So the G&A is great because it's like this old school kind of luncheonette in a commercial block in Maryland. It's on the Retro Roadmap website, so if you go to them, you can check out and find exactly where the address is and things. But it's got counter seating on one side, it's got booths on the other, and there's a gentleman grilling hot dogs or Coney Island hot dogs in the window. So that's like that classic old school thing. They are famous for their Coney Island hot dogs, and if he's making a lot of them, this is an old school thing, but sometimes they do them, and the guy puts them, here's my arm, he will like line them up on his arm because he's making so many of them. And you don't find places like that much anymore. That's the G&A restaurant. What else did I want to tell you about that? Oh, I was afraid somebody was going to ask me what a Coney Island hot dog was because I didn't really know or I forgot. So a Coney Island hot dog, there are many different things that make it up, but if you think about it, it has an interesting meat sauce and usually onions in it. So if you go here, thank you, Glen Wells, for saying it's 1927. I had that down here for something else too. Maybe I cut and pasted wrong. Oh, actually, Hone's Bakery, which is just a block or two from the G&A, and it's also a place that that Julie recommended, and I was looking at the pictures that people have posted online about some of their baked goods. So good. Yay, Julie! Yes! G&A, 1927. You guys rock. See, it's a community effort here, people. When I'm busy blabbing and I can't think of the thinkies up here, I get my friends to help me out. So thanks so much, you guys. But the G&A is a great place. I mentioned Hone's Bakery. They look like everything they have there is delicious, and they also have been open since 1927. And then when you're going from where they are and you're heading a little bit more west, I guess it is, into Baltimore Central, you will actually pass by, or you should stop at, don't just pass by, but stop at the Patterson Bowl, because Patterson Bowl is one of the first places ever to have Duckpin Bowling, and you probably know from previous shows what a nut I am about duckpin bowling because it's so rare that you get the duckpin alleys. So Patterson Bowl is right there too. I haven't been there recently. We did a duckpin bowling video a couple of years ago that I'm going to talk about in a second. And crazily enough, today is the 5-year anniversary. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of that video. So I just love the duck pins, and that's the neat thing about Maryland too, is there's so many duck pin places to go. So moving right along, you know, footloose and fancy free. Here's the thing. Now I know that here's another food stuff and a food recommendation. Now, this is when I know that the place I am going to mention may not be the place, or it may be the place with the best food, but there's a place right in that neck of the woods called Captain James Seafood Palace. And the reason I'm recommending it or just pointing it out is because Captain James is in a building that looks like a boat. You know, if you're going to be somewhere near the ocean, you might as well eat lunch in a place that looks like a boat. So that's right there in that neck of the woods in Baltimore. And since I just saw Jolene Forrester chime in, I want to show off everybody. Hey, look, everybody, it's Jolene. See Jolene? Don't take my man. But she is the proprietress of Joe Retro in Havre de Grace. And she is one of my, she's got such a good heart. She's just such a good eye, all the good stuff she has. So Jolene, thank you for tuning in. I bet your ears were burning because I was just singing your praises earlier because I love Joe Retro. And the neat thing is some people were saying how they haven't been to Havre de Grace, but now they know about your place, so they will stop there. So thank you for tuning in because we're talking about Maud Betty's favorite places in Maryland. I don't have a book on it yet, But when I do, these places are going to be in it. It's so much easier to talk than it is to write. Oh my God, the writing. Okay, moving right along. So we were talking about Captain James Seafood Place looks like a boat, okay? So speaking of boats and food, another thing Maryland is famous for is and are the crab cakes. And there's one place that many people have recommended, and also I think it's a fun place to just check out in general, is Faves Seafood in Baltimore in the Lexington Market. They're supposed to be good for their jumbo lump crab cakes and coddies made out of, and this is when my Boston accent comes back, they're made out of cod, you know, like Cape Cod, like, you know, the fish, the cod. So they're named for coddies, and you get a little saltine with that, Jay, and it's great. You're going to love it. But Fadeley's in Baltimore, if you want to check out a place that many people recommend for the crab cakes, that's the place to go to. If you want to get a bit more fancy, now one of the places I love to go to, loves me maybe one, it better just be one classic cocktail. And if I can find an old school kind of historic bar that when you go in, it just feels like it's been around for forever. There is the Owl Bar at the Hotel Belvedere. And this place is cool. It's like this kind of cozy old school place. It's got stained glass with owls in it. It's been around since like 1903, maybe haunted, maybe not sure. And the neat thing is that the Owl Bar is in the Belvedere Hotel, which is also a historic hotel of historic hotels in America. So we made the goofy idea to drive 2 hours down to Baltimore once and then go and do some stuff and then have a drink and then drive home. Sometimes 2 hours is a lot, so you can stay there. Yeah, one and done, Jolene. You're so right. I got to do that. Hey, Matt Swalwood, nice to see you. And I see Anna Bootram is watching. And Anna, you and Joe, I give mad props when we get to some of these places because Anna and Joe are kindred spirits, and they have been doing the retro road mapping when Maud Betty has not been able to get out onto the road. So they get me excited to go on the road when they discover some places. And there are a few places that I only know about, frankly, because Joe and Anna have discovered them and shared them with me. And now I'm going to share them with you. They do some great videos too, and they are like my inspirational experts for Route 66. Besides Austin Coop and Tulane, America, Joe and Anna Bootram are just wonderful road friends, and if it weren't for Retro Roadmap and the love of all these things that we all love together, we would probably not know each other. And I love it when things that you love bring you together with people that also love them. Like you can hit the ground running talking about old school places like that, like when you have a common language. So there are a number of cool places to go to. Thank you to Joe and Anna. And as I said, to Julie and to Jolene, I love this. It's like extended family in Maryland, and I could go on forever. And I'm not going to go on for forever, but I only have, 35 minutes left, and we haven't even gotten started in Baltimore. So we were talking about the Owl. Yeah, we were talking about the Owl Hotel, the Owl Bar at the Belvedere Hotel. And really quickly, I don't often recommend museums because I like to go to actually places, not in versions of places, but two of my favorite museums are in Baltimore. One of them is the American Visionary Arts Museum. So if you like outsider art, kind of folk art and things like that, it's a wonderful place to go to. Also, I was only there once when Retro Road Husband was in a cover band and they played an event at the Baltimore Museum of Industry. That place was cool. I remember there being all sorts of things about like the history of industry in Baltimore. Really cool, interesting place. Good to know we've got some people in here. Yep, we're going to check out some of these cool places. So those are the two museums that I want to suggest. Thank you. What am I doing? Okay, moving right along, because I have so many things, and this is such a great state. I was so excited. Again, thank you so much for allowing me to do this and you showing up so I have the excuse to do my research, to revisit my maps, to get all excited about places that I so want to support any way I can safely once things are open. So I love it that we're all kind of, storing up some places. and I cannot wait for all of us to go out and go like, blah, here, take my money, old school places, because that's what we want. These are the places we want to see survive this crappy virus. Okay, moving slightly outside of Baltimore city proper. Few places I want to get to, because then we're going to go south, and then we're going to go up again, and then we're going to go west, because despite the fact that everything that I'm doing right now is very kind of on the coast area, there are some gems that we're going to end strong with that are right on the Maryland / West Virginia line. So I want to get to, I don't want to give them short shrift. So one place I definitely want to recommend, not old school, but oh my God, talk about outsider art and creativity. The Paper Moon Diner. Anybody? So not a diner, capital D, diner like architecturally, but diner in a place where you can go get food. And I think they have a place you can sit on at the counter, not sure. This place is an art exhibit, an installation itself. It is overly decorated with all sorts of pop culture accoutrements and toys and dolls and posters, and all of it is super massed on there, and it's just a delight. The food is good, the people are wonderful, and it's just such an immersive, like, fun experience to go to. It is a really neat place to go get some lunch or breakfast or something, and then just walk around the grounds and take, take it all in. It is so cool that I want to make sure that people know about that. So this Paper Moon Diner in Baltimore. I said eclectic, over the top, breakfast wonderful. So I don't know if that's a haiku, but it's such a great place. Another place kind of up in that neck of the woods that I need to recommend is basically the town of Hampden. And Hampden, it's got a P in there somewhere. Cafe Hun is there. And Cafe Hun is kind of is the restaurant that kind of put the term Hun on the map. Now, I say that to us outsiders because Baltimore people know that the reason that they even call it Cafe Hun is because the old school awesome neighborhood ladies back in the day, and maybe to this day, would refer to people with that sign of affection and call you Hun. You know, hey Hun, and I can't even do justice to the accent, so much like somebody butchering the Boston accent, I'm not going to try to butcher the Maryland or the Balmer accent, Hun, but I love Hunfest. They celebrate kind of the kitsch and the fun and the heart of Baltimore, and I literally started calling people Hun because I loved Hunfest so much. So this is in Hampden. Hampden is also where that John Waters movie that I recommended called Pecker is mentioned. Now, I will say this, it's about a kid growing up and learning to be a photographer. Of course, it's John Waters, so he's going to call it Pecker, but it's a really cute movie despite the fact that you might possibly be averse to John Waters movies. Pecker is really funny, and it's based in Hampden itself. So there's Hampden up that neck of the woods. And then also, here's another thing, and I just remembered, I might have to do an addendum to this, or maybe when I do a mid-mod map. One of my mid-century modern discoveries and delightful discoveries in Maryland is a place, but it's also a person. So this is Betty Cook. So Betty Cook is in her 90s, and she's still alive, and she has a shop called The Store. It's called The Store, and it is in the Cross Keys shopping district, just north of Baltimore. And it's been there, I think, since the 50s or 60s. And what she is, I discovered her actually when we were up in New York, and we were at the museum. There was some mid-century modern museum, and I'm totally picturing it. I'm totally forgetting the name of it because I forgot, because that's how it happens. She creates jewelry, kind of this nice, really artistic looking, organic, like a John Moreau painting that you wear on your body. And the thing that's so great is that she is still alive, that she is still creating, what do you call it? Jewelry. Sorry, I blanked for a moment because I don't wear a lot of it, but she makes this great jewelry. She has a really cool store that's almost like shopping at the Museum of Modern Art, gift shop, but you're in Maryland. And we went there because I found out about her. I saw a piece I liked from her in the New York Museum, and then I Googled her and she was still alive, and I found out she had this shop, and I went to the shop and she was there. She usually wasn't there, and I was just like, oh my God, is that her? And the girl was like, yeah, that's her. Like, go say hi. And so I did. So if you go online to retroroadmap.com, you will see me with my big, goofy, nervous smile next to Betty Cook, because she's kind of a legend. So go to her shops. It's really neat stuff. That's more, again, the mid-mod Betty than the mod Betty, Retro Roadmap Betty, but Betty Cook. But getting back to the things that mid-mod, Retro Roadmappers like, right up in that area, again, Baltimore, but slightly more in the burbs, the Senator Theater. Now, I think of the Senator Theater because of our dear friends Tom and Patty Shreve went there as teens, and it is an absolutely gorgeous movie theater with a marquee. It was named, a city icon. It was named at one of the top 20 movie theaters in the world a few years ago. And while it is closed now, because everything is closed now, remember it and remember places like that when we're able to go out live. You can see movies there. All sorts of wonderful things happen there. And it's a place that looks glamorous now, but places had their heyday and then they fell into disrepair and decline when everybody stopped going to the movies. And now we all have to make sure that when we're able to go out again, we make sure that things don't continue to decline, and they come back, and all that effort they made to revive themselves was for good. So that is the Senator Theater. Okay, and then as I mentioned, oh my God, we're not even done with the first page because I love this so much. I'm going to step up the pace a little bit, but it's not because I don't love them. I just want to get to everything. So we talked about Duckpin Bowling, right? And duck pins, this is going to be me for like the 80th time going over here. I should just leave it on my desk. But anyhow, where are we? Right here. Bowling pin. Duckpin bowling, very small bowling pins like this. But as I said, this one has this rubber band around its midriff. We'll talk about that later. But the bowling that I'm going to talk about is at Stoneleigh Lanes. And there's a Retro Roadmap video of us talking to the owner, doing some bowling, having a lot of fun at Stoneleigh Lanes. So go to the Retro Roadmap YouTube page to see that. If you would be a dear, if you haven't subscribed, just hit the subscribe button, because I would love to do a Retro Roadmap live on the YouTubes, but I don't have enough followers there. So if you could help me out with that, that would be awesome. But Stoneleigh Lanes, you can go Duckpin Bowling, and that's so much fun. Okay, so that was kind of the places that were in the Baltimore area. Now we're going to go south so we can go northwest. When we go south, I have a few places that I want to recommend that remind me of people I was in college radio with. So the first one is Ann's Dairy Cream in Glen Burnie. It has been there since 1951, and it's one of the very first places that was featured on Retro Roadmap. And this is because a compatriot of mine, Tim Heaney, from my old college radio station, he now lives in Maryland, but he recommended Ann's Dairy Cream when I very first started Retro Roadmap, and I thank him so much for that. Again, collaborative effort here, people. And it's just a great place to get soft serve ice cream and hot dogs and things. So that's Ann's Dairy Cream in Glen Burnie. But then the other kind of college radio relation that we have, hey, Amy Fairchild, nice to see you. Anytime you want to come and hang out again, the couch is yours. I want to talk about Chicken Ruth's Deli. So they call it Deli. They spell it D-E-L-L-Y. Why? I don't know. It's just what they do. This is in Annapolis, or much like they spell deli with a Y, I sometimes call it Annapolis instead of Annapolis, because why not? Chicken Ruth's is a wonderful old school place known for its half-pound crab cakes. That's a lot of crab cake. I had one, and I actually got half of it, brought it back home to Retro Road Husband when I went there to research for the National Trust for Historic Preservation there. Great old school place to get your breakfasts. You can sit at the counter. All sorts of like local politicians and stuff come in. Really wonderful place. The other neat thing to me about that is that it is right across the street from where another college radio friend of mine who actually got into real radio, Rob Tim, who I used to be on college radio with, works at WRNR down there. And so anytime we're in the area, we like to see if he's on the airwaves and listen to him. So tune in to WRNR when you're in Annapolis or in that environment. See if you can hear Rob Tim, and check out Chick and Ruth's Deli. So yeah, crab cakes, they're a thing. I like them too, Matt Smallwood. Here's a place that I haven't been, but again, talking about that whole thing about it's like a connection where we all contribute our bits, is the National Capital Radio and Television Museum in Bowie, Maryland. Do you pronounce it Bowie? Bowie? I'm going to call it Bowie, like David Bowie. So I have a wonderful retro road map, retro road mapper, Ira Wexler, who gave me a bunch of suggestions, bought my books. Ira, thank you so much. I love hearing from you. It cheers me up. And this is what he says about the National Capital Radio and Television Museum. Is a wonderful small museum with free admission and a collection of radios, televisions, and broadcast memorabilia for the turn of the last century to the 1960s. It's in a historic house. Catch an old-time radio serial or TV show from the 50s played on period equipment. Doesn't that sound like fun? Yeah, so that's the National Capital Radio and Television Museum. And then down there, so that's in Bowie, so that's south of Baltimore. And then when you're in Silver Hill, Maryland, they also call it Hillcrest Heights, or they call it Suitland, which I just cracks me up with Suitland. I can just imagine, like, what is that? The man in the gray flannel suit coming home from his, job at the corporation, and then on the weekends he goes and he plays duckpin bowling. Of course, he plays duckpin bowling at Suitland Duckpin Bowling Center. They've got 24 lanes there, totally old school looking, and I wanted to give them a shout out because I've been trying to get down there for forever myself. Haven't made it, but they look like an awesome old school throwback, place to go, again, play duckpin bowling, because you can barely do that. I guess if the duckpin bowling people ever want a spokesperson, I think I've already christened myself that. Okay, so that's about as south. We're going to go slightly more south to Greenbelt. Now, Greenbelt is where I want to give a shout out to Michael G. Stewart and Julie Boynton, because they are, again, retro road mappers who, when we were in the area, we were visiting and they took us there on Greenbelt. And it's this really interesting thing. If you're into kind of Art Deco architecture and the Works Progress Administration and what the government did back when we had the Depression in the 1930s, Greenbelt is one of the first 3 government New Deal towns planned and built by the federal government. And the interesting thing about that is that all of the architecture is from that kind of Art Deco period, and it's got a really neat little kind of town green, a wonderful old movie house there, and you can actually live in that area as well. So if that's something that Bowie. Thank you, Han. Julie, I knew I was mispronouncing it. I just didn't know the right way to pronounce it. So we'll figure it out. But I mean, you can't get mad at me for wanting to invoke the name of David Bowie. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, if you're ever in the Greenbelt area, definitely check that out. Speaking of that area of Maryland as well, I'm trying to be a little bit more regionally focused. If anybody is keeping notes, I don't know if you're keeping notes. These are probably the basis of my next book, or downloadable at some point. But the Tasty Diner. So the Tasty Diner, there are actually 3 of them. One is in Silver Spring, one is in Bethesda, and one is in Laurel. And while each one of them has been in various states of it's been unclear as if they were going to survive, the best I can find out is that all 3 of them are still open. The one I actually want to also point out, the reason I'm also mentioning Bethesda is because this is a place, and again, giving a shout out to the Tiki people, is there's a place in Bethesda I've not been to, and it probably isn't the most authentic as far as throwback, but as far as Tiki vibe, it's pretty cool. Is the House of Fung Lin. Not the House of Bamboo. Now I got that song going through my head. Like, Brother Cleve, where are you? You need to be my DJ. But anyhow, on Thursdays, when people are allowed to go out again, Jeff Westlake is a great guy who is kind of carrying the torch and keeping the tiki vibes going in Maryland. And he has a Tiki Thursday at the House of Foon Lin in Bethesda, Maryland. If you go, you can get dressed up in your Hawaiian shirt. And if you don't have a Hawaiian shirt, they bring extras so you can put one on. Hey, Brian Everett, nice to see you. Nice to see you. Hope you and the fam are doing well. I love that Glen Wells, that you're on here and you're filling people in with the details of the details on the Tasty Diners, because yes, I love those little details, and I remember that there was a little tavern across the street. On that road trip that I mentioned going on with my sister years ago, I remember us driving past, and I have pictures from back in the day of those things. Okay, now we're actually moving outside of that kind of coastal area of Maryland. And Maryland, if look at it on a map, it's kind of an interesting shape because it's kind of wide, it's got some water, and then it gets really narrow up where it meets the Pennsylvania border, and there's even some of West Virginia that kind of butts in and tries to cut it off. So it's got a little bit more. So we're going from here kind of up to the Pennsylvania neck of the woods and then over to the West Virginia border before we're done in about 15 minutes or so. So the places I want to recommend, because it's not just, you know, near the cities, close Michael G. I think it's just L-I-N, not like Lin City is in. But you can Google that and I'm sure it'll come up. So here's a neat place I have not been to, and my pin on my Google map was actually wrong, but this gave me the opportunity to do the Googling and get my stuff up to date. There's a place in Germantown, Maryland called the Cider Barrel. Now, it was built in the 1920s, 1922, and offered non-alcoholic cider during Prohibition, and I believe it is shaped like a cider barrel. And the neat thing is sometimes when I read about places like that, they say, oh yeah, it used to be there, it's not there anymore. Well, the cool thing was, you know, fingers crossed, arms crossed, that according to a report in January of 2020, so kind of before all this hit, they were ready to reopen the Cider Barrel, which is really great news. So I'm hoping if they were ready to open it in January, they're just going to hold off, and then the Cider Barrel will be open in Germantown, Maryland again. So keep an eye out for that, and when I hear about it, when everything is open, I'll put it on Retro Roadmap. So now we're getting over to the western part of the state. As I said, one of my favorite places to go that's literally right over the Pennsylvania border is, again, not a vintage place per se, but if you love vintage furniture, and especially Haywood Wakefield furniture, if you're not familiar with that, it's kind of the precursor to some mid-century modern stuff. American-made, maple, blonde wood, very well constructed, very solid stuff. I want to feel like it was made often in Winchendon, Massachusetts, but that's just me. I don't know. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the deal. I love that stuff and have for decades. And there's a place in Hagerstown, Maryland called Strictly Haywake, H-E-Y, like Haywood, Wakefield, W-A-K-E. And Chris at Strictly Haywake has a place, and I'm looking around my house, that's multiple times bigger than my house, chock-a-block full of Haywood Wakefield furniture. He also restores it. He also repairs it. He refinishes it. So if you have pieces that you love but you don't want to repair or restore yourself, he will do that. He will even, if this is just a real quick thing, he will even paint it for you. Now, I know some people who are furniture purists will be like, painting it. But let me tell you, I picked up a Haywood Wakefield dining table with 2 leaves in it, seats a ton of people for $50 at a vintage, not even a vintage, like at a flea market, like rummage sale type place in Delaware. $50. It's worth, it was, a new one would be like $1,500, but the finish was shot, and it had ink stains on it, and it was just really nasty. So for years, I had a tablecloth over it. I decided I wanted to get it painted. I wanted to have it painted, or I wanted it painted, but I knew I would do a crappy job. Well, It looks so good right now. He painted it orange. So Chris at Haywick, Strictly Haywick. This is not a commercial for him. He's not paying me. But if you like that kind of stuff, Hagerstown, Maryland. Moving right along. Oh, this was a neat story too. So in Hagerstown too, the place I totally missed, Crumps Donut Shop. So the thing I love about Crumps Donut Shop is I had never heard of it, right? But then I was on a conference call on something years ago, and I mentioned, as we were all kind of waiting for things to get going, that I do this thing called Retro Roadmap, and I like to share cool vintage places and, you know, kind of local places. And some woman pipes up, she's like, oh, I have a place for you. And it's Crumps Donuts in Hagerstown, Maryland. And it's this little small square, like hole in the wall. Like if unless you were a local, you wouldn't know where this place was. But it has wonderful donuts. And the cool thing was, this is what I loved, is that she said, oh yeah, anytime we have people come into town to visit us, we always take them to this little donut place. And I thought, you know, here's the thing. Like all of the places we talk about on Retro Roadmap are the places that we think are kind of cool. Like you don't get, like, no offense, I'm not going to tell everybody like, hey, we got a Dunkin' Donuts here in town. You want to go see my Dunkin' Donuts? I'm not going to show off a chain. When people come to visit and when I go traveling, I want to see the things I don't see everywhere. And so I just loved that immediately she piped up and literally was like, I take everybody to this donut shop that's a little hole in the wall, delicious donuts, opens at like 5:30 a.m. And I think once they sell out their donuts for the day, they close. So that's Crumps Donuts in Hagerstown. Moving westerlier, to continuing west all the way to West Virginia, because we're still in Maryland right now. This is a place that Joe and Anna Boutram totally up for me, which is Curtis's Famous Wieners in Cumberland, Maryland. Now, I have not driven in that area, but they took a great road trip because they live in the Baltimore area. And they went out there and they raved about that place, and rightly so, because it's another one of those places that's been open, you know, for almost 100 years, family owned and operated, famous for their Coney Island hot dogs. 1918 is when they opened. And again, that kind of place that he makes a lot puts him up his arm. They've got counter seating, they've got booth seating, and it's like such an old school place that Joe and Anna, Anna ended up feeling like they were family. And now they have a connection to Curtis there, and they go back there all the time, and they've made that connection. Like they have gone from being just passersby to having a connection to the place. So that's in Cumberland. Another place to go to in Cumberland, Maryland, if you want to maybe work off a hot dog or so, is it looks like they've got another they've got a Duckpin Bowling Alley, the Diamond Bowling Alley in Cumberland. And finally, we find a place that does this, the rubber band duck pin. You know what? Yeah, you don't often see the rubber band duck pins where you can actually play them, but here you can, and that's at the Diamond Bowling Alley in Cumberland. We're almost towards, we're heading west, people. We're going into West Virginia almost, and we are in Frostburg, Maryland. Adorable little place. I haven't been there, but the Princess Restaurant. It's been open for over 80 years, still owned by the same family. I think it's 4th generation now, and it's in downtown Frostburg. And it's, again, I'm a sucker for counter seating and booth seating, because the thing is that it's like, if you're a single person, you feel totally okay going in and taking up one seat at the counter. There's room for you at the counter. If it's busy, you sit down there and you may literally rub elbows with somebody, but it's how you get to know people. They serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and all sorts of fountain faves. And there was a picture online of somebody holding up what it looked like back in the day and what it looks like now. And it looks pretty awesome to me. The other neat thing is when you do this Retro Roadmap research, is sometimes you can almost take like a Google Street View of the area, and it looks like there's some other interesting things in Frostburg, Maryland. So put that on your map and maybe go for an adventure. Yeah. Ooh, the Fruit Bowl outside of Cumberland Produce and Candy. Thank you, people. Thank you, Donna. I didn't know about that place, but that's good to know. Just outside of that area too, in Grantsville. So Grantsville looks like another place that's a neat kind of destination to drive to and explore and discover. And the cool thing is I found two things there. One is, I believe this was Ira Wexler again recommended, or somebody else recommended it, is the Castleman Inn. It's been an inn since 1842, and they still have motel rooms. You can still be there. You can still stay there in a historic inn. They also have a breakfast. They have a bakery and a cafe. I'm talking so much because I'm so excited to tell everybody about these places, but then I run out of my oxygen. So that is the Castleman Inn in Grantsville. Looks like a cute place. Again, haven't stayed there. So always do your own research. And if it looks like a place you're interested in, go for it. But if I tell you about it, you know, and it doesn't jibe with what you dig, that's cool, daddy-o. But, you know, just make sure that it connects up with your heart, not just mine. Another really cool place in Grantsville is the Penn Alps Restaurant and Craft Shop. Now, this is a place, no, I don't know if he's still on, but Craig Nye, I was thinking of you when I discovered this place, because it opened in 1957, and it is a restaurant that serves kind of old-timey food. They have a buffet. You can also get entrees and things, but also it's a wonderful craft destination. And I say that in kind of the old-school craft things. They say they've got... many craftsmen rely on the income provided by the Penn Alps to sustain them because it was opened in 1957 to help people help themselves. So it's a place where local people who make really cool, interesting crafts can go and sell their stuff. And it looks like a neat place to go explore, eat, stay, and what a fun place, what a fun way to spend your weekend. So the last place I want to tell you about in Maryland, because we've gone all the way from Ocean City in 1 hour. Where's my hand? All the way in 1 hour, we've gone from the ocean of Ocean City to way over where this is literally the town right before the West Virginia line, is Englanders. So Englanders is in Oakland, Maryland, and this is a really cool place. And that's why I'm so psyched to like end strong on this, because they are a store that used to be like, I was trying to figure out the right word for this. I say like an old Woolworth store, like bigger than a variety store, maybe a variety store, but a Woolworthsy type store that was once one of those, and now it is actually an antiques mall, which is great because you can go and look around and find old school things. But here's the cool thing. They still have the lunch counter from when it was a Woolworths type place, and they still serve lunch and stuff there. So you can go out there and you can look around at all the old school things that you love to collect, and you can, you know, make it a drive. Enjoy the journey. It's not about just the destination, it's about the journey. And go to Englanders in Oakland, Maryland. Go there, and then you can eat lunch at the old school counter there too. Now, again, you're going to hear me say a bunch of things about counter service. There's room for you at the counter. You know, Duckpin Bowling. I have my faves. These are the places I love to share. And I am so excited when you all show up and you want to hear about them too. Because for a few moments we can, you know, not ignore, but, you know, put on the back burner what's happening in the real world and get our hearts excited about the places that we want to go to and the places we want to champion. And we definitely want these places to survive once this is done. I have wanted, and I know all of us have wanted, this type of business, these mom and pops, these interesting places that you don't get at home. We have wanted these places to do well prior to this horrificness that's going on the planet. But this horrificness is putting into focus, sharp focus, really the fact that you spend your time and your money where your heart is, and you support the things that you want to carry on, you know? Yeah, I have been so excited because I too, you know, I go to some chain stores occasionally. I'm not perfect, but in this past 5 or 6 weeks that we've been on lockdown, I have survived without going to a chain store. The things that I thought I had to go to get to a chain store, I can get like across the street at the Gateway. You know, I don't have to go to a big box store. I still, like right now, have a choice of where I want to spend my money, and so I choose to spend it at a place that is given back to my community. You know, they're making up, what do you call it, like the hand sanitizer, and they're selling masks, and they're, you know, they're open when other places can't be. So I don't want to get on my soapbox, but just as a reminder, like this is kind of a horrible time, but we need to pull the good out of the bad, or the bad will win. So this is my way of getting you and me, obviously, excited about going off and doing some road tripping and supporting little mom and pops, like getting out of the house. So that was Maryland. I promised, as always, I will be back next week. I will be probably quarantined next week. That's cool. You know what? I can deal, because it's for the greater good. I haven't decided what states I'm going to do next week. So you'll have to tune in. And, well, I'll probably do like a Facebook, whatever, like a event invite. So I'll let you know then. But thank you so much for everybody for showing up. I wish if I could cue it up, I would put my, like, some exit music and I'd dance on out of here, but it's just me and my little setup here. But thank you so much for showing up. Have a great weekend. Take care of yourself, you know, make the best of this situation. And I really look forward to seeing you all in the real life, but also here online. So, you know, Maud Betty signing off, saying just drive your life, okay? See you next week.